Okay, well, welcome everybody. Uh, we I just wanted to get a couple things out on the table here. What do I do with my notes now? Um, uh, I just wanted to talk about real quick. Next month, our guest is Steve Locke and Anthony LaDuca from Ecluse. So don't forget to put that on your calendar. And then I want to just talk about the party briefly because it fits in because Anthony is going to be one of the guest wineries. So we're really looking forward to him being there. So you got to buy a ticket if you want to come down and meet him in person. I know some of you have already. And it'll be really a lot of fun, and the tickets are going really well. And we're really excited.
Fun
So,
group of wineries too.
right.
Not just
Yeah, it's great. Great venue, good wineries. It's diverse. Is that would be fair to say, right?
Yep.
And all price ranges and different styles. And I think everybody will really enjoy it. The food. I'll be publishing the food lineup if that matters to anybody soon. And we're gonna have a really good time. Lots of good gifts to give away too. Anyways, tonight our guest is Anthony Yount, and as I explained on my post, he's a man of many wineries here, so he's got a lot of projects going on. We are going to go away from our usual format. For those of you that are regulars here, we had him on with uh,
Coverage.
with SixMileBridge last year, and there's so much more he can talk about that we're all going to be interested in. And so his we have obviously here he wants to talk about Royal Nonesuch Farm and Kinero, which are his labels, and then they also he's Denner, 6 Mile Bridge, and Riise, which we'd like to hear a little bit about. We know very little about what's going on over there, except we get the invites to buy. Anyways, welcome to our guest, Anthony Yount.
Thank you.
So, let's start off. We're not going to go down the usual questioning route. So Jason and I are just going to throw some things out there, and then
we're just sitting at a bar having a conversation.
Right, and then we're going to bring our participants here in because you're going to ask questions, but put your questions in the chat. Then I'll call on you, and then you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask Anthony yourself. But we want to make it more interactive than we typically do. And we usually wait till the end. So let's do it that way. So Anthony, give us the lowdown on Royal Nonesuch. I know you don't have a formal tasting room, and you told me you're going to have one soon, or you already do. So give us a little background on that. And anything you want to tell about yourself and your experience around any of these wineries, please share that with us.
For sure. Why don't we start off there? Just looking through the list here, I know almost everybody on here. I think everybody on here, most everybody on here knows me. So I won't bore with the details, which is why I think I gave the instructions of let's get off the rails. So questions are welcome. As Mike said, just ping them in and we'll go down it. And I'm here to answer, whatever, or tell whatever funny stories I can of my now 2 decades in Paso Robles.
Did you start when you were 3?
What's that?
You started when you were 3?
I started when I was 3. Thank you so much. So as Mike alluded to, we just bought the old Windward Winery from Mark Goldberg and Maggie D'Ambrosio. We closed last June and are slowly sort of turning it into our own space. We have partners on that space. That's Brian Lopez of Lopi Vineyards, which is a sort of fledgling wine brand that's about to have just fantastic success. His father, Paul Lopez, and I have sort of followed each other around for a couple decades, including doing 6 years together at Denner. So Paul's making those wines, the vineyards on Vineyard Drive, just south of Denner, and they're making incredible Syrah, Cabernet, and some fun blends. My favorite wine they make is called Nocturnes. It's a Petit Verdot, Petit Syrah blend. So we bought the property together. We're hoping to be open in our tasting room by mid-April. It's in full facelift mode right now, but Dave was just up last month, and we've got our our tables in the cellar, old school Paso. It's like tasting at the OG Linne Coloto, maybe with more beer and less fruit flies, if you know what I mean. So if you guys find yourself in the area even before mid-April, we'd love to host you. Ali Sands has joined our team. She did a couple of harvests with us at Denner, and then moved on to do a harvest at Cordant, and was looking for a gig. And so we brought her in sort of as a jack of all trades. So it'll either be Hillary, myself, or Ali hosting you in our cellar, and then eventually we'll move into the whopping 800 square feet of tasting room that we have.
Can I ask a quick question? Low pie resonates with me. I don't want to get into something negative, but why does it resonate with me in Dow? Maybe you can.
It's not Dow. They have sold fruit to Booker for a long time, and one of my favorite neighbor single vineyard SKUs is a low pie. It's typically the highest scoring of the single vineyard SKUs that my favorite neighbor makes.
Okay.
So fantastic site, organically farmed, making incredible wines, and just the nicest people in the world. So once we're open in the tasting room, if you guys make an appointment, there's 2 tables in the tasting room. There's gonna be one for low pie, one for us, each seat 12. We're trying to host as sort of community hosts, so you may be paired with some folks you know or some folks you don't know, but we want to, in a time where having community, real actual community is very hard. We want to provide that through the lens of wine.
Anthony, you mentioned Booker, and just to address the elephant in the room, if you can, or if you want to, or if you don't, that's fine. We can come back to it or just disregard me. Between Booker and Denner, with the Constellations announcement, any thoughts or insights that you can share early on?
The Constellation announcement, was that yesterday or the day before?
Yeah.
A couple days ago, yeah.
Yeah, just if anyone didn't notice it, there was it kind of looked like it was a leak that Constellation is looking to unload their wine business, and it sounded like was it Delicato was going to take the commercial brands, and then Butterfly, who just bought help me out here, Duckhorn, was looking to take the luxury brands. I certainly don't know anything. I mean, somebody heard a rumor, and then it was in that same day, it was in Wine Business Monthly. Obviously, I have a lot of friends at Booker. I think the team over there is incredible. Pete Tyrone, Hillary Graves, that cellar teams are like, those are my buddies. Pollo, who's like actually the vineyard manager's like a lifeline for me whenever I need some help. So they're strong brands. The portfolio is great. I'm hoping that all works out, and for better or worse, right now in the wine industry is kind of going through one of those 15-year cycles. And this is my second time living through one, and I think we'll come out better on the other side. But I look at it from a Paso's perspective, and Booker, my favorite neighbor, they kick out some incredible wines at great value price points. They nail hospitality. That brand's going to be great no matter who owns it. As far as Denner, the future's incredibly bright there. If you guys are on the list, you've probably seen videos with Mark Williams and myself. After acquisition in November of 22, I signed a 2-year contract, which has since expired. And between Mark and Caitlin Williams and Autumn Cohn, if you guys are members, you've dealt with Autumn. That's the reason I came back to them and said, hey, I want to re-up for a couple more years. So I'm involved at least through the next 2 years, and I hope beyond that. And mostly it's Mark's winemaking. He and I got to work harvest together last year, and I think we both sort of are at a race at who learned more working together. So Mark brings 25 years of experience throughout Napa and the Central Coast, and I can't tell you how many decisions he made that I wouldn't have made that made the wines better, and how many arguments we had that were constructive. And I think we came to compromises and just made some really, really incredible wines. So I learned more in 2024 getting to work with Mark than I have in really probably any other vintage except for my first. So there's a really bright future. Don't read the San Francisco Chronicle. No, I love Esther, but it seems like there's a lot of doom and gloom out there, when I think at the end of the day, this is part of that 15-year cycle that we see. We get oversupplied in grapes, and then vineyards get pulled out, and we move on.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. So, multiple brands that you're involved in. Can you just touch on all of the different projects you're working on for those that aren't fully aware?
Yeah. So Kinero and Royal Nonesuch, my wife Hillary and I own those. The elevator pitch on that is Kinero is white wines from high limestone sites, predominantly purchased fruit. And then Royal Nonesuch Farm is our estate vineyard on York Mountain. And we make currently 4 wines under that label. Most of you see the estate red, which is a blend of everything that we make or we grow, including some of the white. And a little on Hillary. Hillary is a 4th generation California wine grape grower. So whether she likes it or not, she was born to do it. And we have the most incredibly sexy pillow talk, talking about spray programs and no-till and vertebrate pest management. But as any couple is, this is the way it works, is she'll scout the vineyard and tell me sort of what to execute. And I say, no, I don't want to do it that way. I think we should do this. And I go out and do it. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, hey, babe, have you ever thought about this? She's like, yeah, that's what I told you to do 2 weeks ago. So she's always at least 2 weeks in front of me on farming. And then outside of our own projects, we have SixMileBridge, which we were on last summer. Hillary was the vineyard manager there from 2017 through 2023. And she stepped away in 23 to spend a little more time with the girls. She also took on farming the Bessenti Vineyard, which is a vineyard that I have worked with since, 2006. So Susie and Ellis Bessenti are dear, dear friends of ours, and they needed a little help and guidance there. So she's taken over management there and focused on our place and being able to volunteer at PE and school class and drama and sports and all the things. So she coached 2 soccer teams this past harvest, which is just incredible, because normally it's like, what grandparents are here and who can we dump them off with? But we made some incredible wines together there, and continue obviously to do so with Bessenti and Royal Nonesuch Farm. And then Riise is Juan Mercado's project. Juan is the founder and still partner at Cellars in Napa. And he came down to Paso in 2019, and we were introduced by Eric Jensen from Booker. And what's really fun about the Riise project that's different than everything else I do, which is all estate-based, site-focused wines, is the Riise wines. We make Appellate series blend. So everything is labeled Paso Robles. We're using currently about 12 different vineyards. And when Juan and I were talking about this, it's what style of wine do we want to make? And let's go out and find the vineyard sourcing that's going to provide that for us. So if you guys have had the Realm wines, they're big, they're rich, they're textural, they're very profound, they're very age-worthy. And he wanted to sort of take the success of Realm in the lens of Cabernet to Grenache, Tempranillo, and Syrah. And we went out, and between purchasing some property, existing vineyards, the Shadow Canyon vineyard, if you ever had some of the wines that Gary Gibson made off there, or even Russell Fromm or McPrice Myers, just an incredible site. And then we purchased a piece of property next to the old Terry Hogue Vineyard and planted that in 2021, and that's now online. So between those two estate vineyards, Paderewski, Catapult, Heartstone, G2, Onyx Vineyard, we were able to sort of piece together all these unique sites and fantastic farmers and make these big, rich, textural wines, where everything else I do is sort of interpreting the site and the owner's vision of what they want, which is what I really love to do and what we do on Royal Nonesuch. But I was challenged by Juan's task there. And then obviously you guys know Denner. We've been around for a long time, still crushing it there. As Mike mentioned earlier, the Dirt Worshipper last year was named the #5 wine in the world by Jeb Dunnick, which is
No
just
big deal.
awesome accolades for somewhere that I've worked for now. This will be my 20th vintage with Denner Vineyard fruit, which is very cool. Two of those were at Via Creek when we had a contract for 5 acres worth of Denner fruit, but my entire career I've gotten to work with Denner fruit, so it's got a special spot in my heart and in my legacy, hopefully. And then we make the Bessenti Vineyard wines, which is a tiny little property in Cambria. Syrah Grenache. We do a Syrah Grenache blend and a rosé. Very spicy, terroir-driven wines from serpentine soils on really the furthest edge of where I think you can get most of those grapes ripe. If you haven't checked them out, go to BessentiVineyards.com. They're wonderful people. Susie and Ellis actually cooked at Hillary and I's wedding. They did a little Santa Maria style barbecue. And then I have a little project in Green Valley, which is technically in Solano County, but it borders Coombsville. And there's one of my favorite viticulturalists, Phil Couturi, and I work on this together. We made our first wine last year. He and I were able to plant the vineyard in 21 and 22. We don't yet have a name, but we'll be doing Syrah and a white blend, and then it will sort of expand from there into the future. We planted 28 acres up there. And
wait, so how do we follow up on that without a name?
I will when there's a name and there's something to tell you other than we planted this incredible vineyard and we're making some fun wines up there. Okay. I'll let you guys know.
That's
so
what, six
I got
different...
a question. I got a question about Riise.
Yeah,
Chris and I are familiar with the wine. I don't know if anybody else is. Juan's been described to me as a master blender. Is that the palate? Is that you make the wine, but you make it based on his kind of specifications? Is that fair to say? Or
yeah, Juan is one of the few owners that I've worked with that has made wine for a long time and really understands how to make wine and can be a sounding board for, hey, what do you think about fermenting this hot? Or, where are you with whole cluster? Where are you with Sauniers? What barrel program works? So it's very much a collaboration. It's funny you bring up the blending because he and I just blended together the 23s last week. So very fresh in my mind. And Juan's been early on in Realm, probably through the late aughts and early teens. He worked with Michel Roland as a consultant who's, I don't even think it's arguable. He's probably the best enologist, best blender that's ever been anywhere. And so I've learned an enormous amount of his experience of sitting at the table with Michel Roland and how he approaches blending, which is very different than how I've approached blending. So we kind of meet somewhere in the middle on that. And I will say this, every time I think I've got a blend together, the response is, how do we make it better? How do we make it richer? And how do we make the finish longer? So he's just sort of like, he's that Rick Rubin sitting in the producer's room saying, let's do it again, but take this away. Let's do it again and add this. And he's not telling you what to take away or add. He's just trying to give you direction to sort of think through what
The
can make
outcome.
it better.
So how do you contrast your blending style versus Michelle's?
So, first of all, I think one of the things that, and again, I've never sat in a room with Michelle Rollins, so I don't want to speak out of turn here.
Via Juan.
Via Juan.
Yeah.
One of the things that Michelle apparently does is he puts together, and again, most of his projects are Cabernet based, so this is very different than my world.
Sure.
Other than SixMileBridge, he puts together the very best Cabernet wine, the very best Merlot wine, and the very best sort of everything else, and then uses those components to blend with to create base blends. Whereas I've always said, all right, I want to make, in the case of Denner, I'm going to make Ditch Digger. What components are going to make Ditch Digger? So as we've looked at Riise, Syrah is the wine that can kind of go into everything, that plays well with Tempranillo, it plays well with Grenache, it's a standalone. So as we've approached that project, it's let's start with Syrah. Let's make the absolute best Syrah with disregard to the amount of quantity we're making, and then use that as a Syrah component that goes into each of those other wines.
Well, and Syrah plays really well with Cab too, as noted by a lot of the flagship labels throughout Paso. Is that on the Riise plan too?
We have a tiny amount of Cab, but I think, Juan, having lived the Cabernet world for a few decades in Napa, his interest is in everything else. So Cab plays a supporting role, especially with the Tempranillo, occasionally with the Furman, which is our reserve blend, but it's never a lead in anything. And he's very clear on Cabernet is not the basis of the program.
Yeah. So what did I count? 6 labels? Is that what it is that your hands are in right now? 6 labels?
That feels about right.
So
quick
I know
question I was going to ask a quick question about Riise, so we can got to hold them for a while, right?
Yeah, I think so 19 was the first vintage. I think the 19s are just coming into their prime drinking window, and they'll hold it for a while. Again, they're big wines. They're built for the long haul, but they're also ripe. So don't be afraid of decanting them, which is not something I normally recommend on my own wines. I think you can lose some aromatics in decanting, but these wines are large enough that a decant will help in their youth. 2020 is drinking fantastic. 19 to 20, I think, are kind of on the same trajectory right now in Paso and a lot of the wines I've made. 21s will need some time. I think the 21s are just about to ship out or have just shipped out. I'm not on the business side. But if you guys do find yourself in Paso and want to try the Riise wines, we're trying to put together the opportunity as best as possible for people to try them. info@risewine.com is the best way to do it. And Levo Vineyard and Winery in Tin City is helping crush some of that fruit these days. And I think we have a spot to taste in there. And then otherwise, Juan, Chris, who runs the business, and we're working on hiring somebody to kind of help with tastings by appointment. We'd love to have you try them.
That's good news.
Great tip.
Great.
So
sorry,
potential
Jason.
tasting opportunities at Levo for Riise.
Right.
Yeah, but don't reach out to Levo direct on that. Go to info@risewine.com.
Sorry, Jason. Wait a minute. I'm going to inject a question real here. I got one here. Anthony, who's your favorite tasting room staff?
Oh man.
Don't pay any attention to who's in this group right now.
Oh, what? Come on, Misha.
I just had to throw that in.
Sorry, I had to throw that one in there because you know how much I love you.
Tisha, you probably know this as well as anyone. I want to say the last time I have made an appointment at a tasting room was before I had kids, and I have a 9-year-old. So I really I love everyone that I have worked with over the years at all those projects. But I'm the last person you should ask that question.
Tisha, is your camera broken?
No, I'm just hiding out tonight.
Yes, you are.
But Anthony, I had to ask because there is only one correct answer.
I know there is. It's not the tasting room staff. It's my tasting room person.
There you go.
Right. Anthony, of those 6 different labels, now I know 2 of them are yours. But for all the others, where you're working with owners and between, I'll just say off the top of my head, between Jim or 6MileBridge and then say Juan, those are radically different approaches to wine, right? I mean, Jim's kind of old world
That's
style,
what
and
makes it so fun.
right. How do you approach that? I mean, how do you come into, I mean, all these different labels with unique visions from the different owners and keep and bring their vision to life while still using your interpretation?
Yeah, so great question. Anybody that kind of reaches out or I'm introduced to and wants to do some wine, the very first thing we do is I say, you know what, send me 5 bottles of wine that if you were on a desert island for the rest of your life, you'd be happy to drink. And
Such
I
a
don't
brilliant
care.
strategy.
Yeah, I don't care what variety it is. I don't care what country it's from. Send me 4 or 5 wines that like just turn you on. And then I don't look at them. I find either an assistant winemaker or a cohort that I trust really well that understands wine to open them up and see what they are. And then I have them go sort of find comparing and contrasting wines from Paso. And we do a tasting, all blind. The only person that knows what it is whoever I've given those wines to. And I usually invite them because they're always interested in doing it. And we try these, 4 to 8 wines that we've had and blind and discuss what we like about them, what we don't like about them. And you really get a feel for the style of wine that owner wants. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what score you get. If the owner doesn't love the wine that we're making for them, we're not going to be successful. Like what you want is them to be excited about it, open it at their house, share it with their friends, absolutely pumped on it. And once we understand what they like in wine, we look at the site that they have. In Jim's case, it was a very, very distinct site with a pretty limited but outstanding quality that could be made off there. And it really lined up with his vision. The only thing I would say that wouldn't line up is like Jim liked wines that were from Bordeaux with 13% alcohol. And I can't make 13% alcohol on the west side of Paso at 2,000 feet elevation. I can make wines that taste like that, but they're going to be 14.7.
Right.
Conservatively. And we've gone through this process and I've said no probably more times than I've said yes, because I don't think I can do what you want to do with your site. Let me find somebody that does. Because really, at the end of the day, I don't want to have a house style. I don't want you to try Royal Nonesuch Farm, Riise, 6MileBridge, Denner, and say, oh, those are all Anthony Yount wines. I want you to say each one of these sites has a specific thing, and we're being true to it. And Riise, again, being sort of the outlier, which is not a site-driven wine, but there's a style-driven wine that's consistent year in, year out. And that's, I guess, sort of in Paso, in my vision, what I hope my legacy is interpreting a site and an owner's vision, sometimes Hillary and I's own, and putting out something that's unique and can't be replicated.
Now, that was one of the most interesting conversations in 6 Mile when Jim was on. You guys, he wants something, and you're kind of, it's a give and take. You're going back.
Yeah, we gotta find a happy medium. Like you're not gonna like the wines at 13.5. Let me make wines that you like, and forget about the numbers.
I'm
You
just
can't
reading
you
today.
can't harvest in July.
Exactly. Well, we can, but nobody will be happy about it.
Right.
Yeah, and I was just reading today. Everybody about the cab. They love it. Just reading in the thread today, just briefly. Look, I don't look all day, but yeah.
I feel like you've achieved that objective because all the wines from those different labels are definitely unique, consistently unique to that particular style.
Well,
And
thank you.
I have to say, for those who haven't tried Royal Nonesuch, to me, some of the most consistently balanced, exceptional wines. Like of all those labels, all excellent, excellent wines. Um, but if you haven't tried Royal Nonesuch, everybody, you're missing out. You should try it.
The best kept secret.
Truly, truly. Well, hopefully your new tasting room will help change that secret part of it.
I hope so. We hope to be the best kept secret for a long time.
The
So
party's gonna blow you up, man.
yeah, for sure. Hey,
Yeah.
I love for so many reasons the practice of having the owner send you the 5 bottles or whatever of their favorite wines that you would like to emulate. Especially just to try the 5 bottles of wines that they love,
Oh,
and assuming they're good wines. What did Juan send you?
so with Juan, it was a little different. What we ended up doing was, him coming down from Napa and having the experience. I said, and part of this was again selfish. Hillary and I came up for like 3 days to Napa, and we're like, all right, we want to come see who you love in Napa, and and why you love them, and taste them with you, and to sort of give us an idea of not just style but also hospitality. And this was so fun.
How does hospitality play into it?
I think all of it plays together. Everything we're trying to do in winemaking, at least everything I'm trying to do in winemaking, is create an experience. I don't create a product, right? What I want you to do is have an experience, and whether that experience is celebrating a milestone in your life, or easing a really rough Tuesday at work. I want to be a part of that experience, and I want you to say, hey, this is going to make this just a little bit better. So hospitality to me is important in how we present the wines. And again, kudos to Tisha for reaching that out. Cause I mean, that's 99% of you try these wines first without ever meeting me. So, it's so important to have the right team, and Tisha's been part of that for a long time.
Well, where did Juan take you?
So we started at Staglin, and what I loved about Staglin was just sort of that OG cult Napa experience. And those wines are not flashy, but they're incredibly well made. You've got the historical aspect, the original Napa family. I mean, the Parent Trap was filmed there. Thank you. The Uncle Nearest is kicking in. And it's a generational property. Shannon's now taking over, and just to sort of see that experience of Napa that many of us haven't gotten to see. And then from there, we went to Abreu, and we tasted with Brad Grimes in the cave. And if there's someone in my life I want to be, it's Brad Grimes. He's got 2,000 square feet of caves, and he's the only full-time employee making wine, and he's the master of his domain making his wines. And he's an incredible chef, and he has all these bitchin' sites that are farmed by Dave Abreu, and when he needs help, he pulls in just a fantastic crew of vineyard guys that have farmed the vineyard and understand what's happening, and makes, I think, some of the most unique wines in Napa Valley. I think they stand out for their earthiness and basiness and structure and ageability. So that was a highlight, and I'd not had those wines, mostly because they're probably out of my price point, but I'm a huge fan of what he's doing there. And then we finished the day tasting with Andy Erickson underneath his house in his little cellar, and we were trying the Favia wines there, and a few other smattering of things, but just kind of seeing the breadth of what the Valley has to offer, and three people that do it exceptionally well, stylistically very different. There's a lot to unpack, and it was probably more confusing than it was clarifying at the end of the day. But I think, in true Juan fashion, it was like, make great wine. If you make great wine, we're going to be successful.
Oh, We want to open
Let's-
up. We got a bunch of questions built up, so we're going to
Yeah,
open up that in a minute. I want to ask real quick about the 23s.
let's throw in a question. Go ahead, Jason. You want to pick one out?
Well, let me just real quick get your take on what you. I think you said you just finished blending the 23s for release Riise, right?
Yep.
Do you share everybody's enthusiasm on 23?
I do, with Riise in particular, because that's super fresh. We were comparing them to 21. 21 was my favorite vintage of late. Probably 16 was the next closest for me personally to that. And those wines punch at a similar level. The 23s, as we were making those blends and comparing them to or benchmarking them to the 21s, we're blowing them out of the water. And that's been kind of the experience I've seen at the bench level of blending, not actually putting the wines together and putting them back down. All the wines I've actually physically blended and put back down have tightened up a little bit, which is actually something we saw in 16 as well. So I'm interested to see how that sort of last racking, getting to tank, getting to bottle, is going to treat them. But I have extremely high expectations, and they'll be long-lived wines. I mean, to me, 23 is probably most similar to the 2010. It was cold, it was long, it was wet. We got fully ripe tannins. All I can say is I hope I'm a better winemaker in 2023 than I was in 2020 or 2010. So hopefully the experience will be at least as good, if not better.
I will tell you. I'll tell you a brief. Jason and I, in our brief history together, we decided that our palates followed Jeb Dunnick's. So we read all that that's how we see the scores and
Yeah.
Riise, Denner, SixMileBridge never gets, they never are.
They don't submit. I'm
He
assuming.
doesn't submit, does he?
We just submitted the 21s for the first time, and they did
Okay.
very well. They were 94 to 96, I think. So
Well done. Well done.
We follow the trend, and you always are up there.
Well, thank you.
But
Yeah,
we have that palate. We don't like Jim's 13.5. We do like the higher, the bigger, bolder wines. So
I've known Jeb for a long time. I think I met him for the first time in 08. And while I don't always agree, I love the consistency he does. And just so all of you know, I don't make wine for Jeb Dunnick. I make wine for you guys. So if you like it, enjoy it. When Jeb likes it, great. But at the end of the day, you guys are putting your hard-earned dollars towards an experience that we're hoping to create for you. So
it's only a guideline.
Exactly.
He's not right all the time, but it is.
He's great. He's consistent. Anybody that started their passion project called the Rhone Report is really high in my book.
Right.
and he's fond of Paso.
He's fun. He's a huge advocate for Paso.
Yeah,
that is absolutely true. Absolutely.
Yeah. Brian, your hand was raised. I don't know if it's still
long
raised.
Time ago.
It's been a long time.
No, my question was about well, actually I have two questions. One was about what your plans are for Windward, and the other thing I was curious about for Riise, and this going down a rabbit hole. So back when James Suckling was here and he was reviewing wines at L'Aventure, there was a shiner there of Riise that I had the opportunity to try. But the wines that I tasted at the wine merchant were a little bit different. And I was curious if there was some sort of a pivot that happened between that shiner and the product that you ended up creating for your initial release.
So I'm trying to think back. I think the shiners that we showed Suckling were actually the same, were the 2019s, because that was the only thing we had in bottle. And we did bottle shiners and then I had to label them later because it took Juan and creative team a little bit longer to figure out naming and
for those non-industry folks, can you just really quickly explain shiner?
Yeah, shiner's a bottle that doesn't have a label on it. It's not a black eye. So
in development.
Yeah, what happens more often than not is that the winemaker is trying to drive the style of the wine and bottle at the right time, but sometimes creative branding, imaging, printing is behind that. So we have to bottle wines without labels on them, then we add labels later. So Brian, that should have been the same exact wine, and probably the only difference you saw in tasting those, if you were trying the 2019s, which I believe is what we were pouring at the Merchant, is just the evolution of time and bottle.
Which do you remember which one was sent over to Suckling for? Because I think you have
So we
three
showed
or
all
four
four
different ones.
wines, I believe, to Suckling at that lunch. So it
Okay.
was the Jovian, the Furman, Doyen, and Peace, and they were not named at that time. So it probably would have been Tempranillo blend, Syrah blend, Grenache blend, Reserve.
Okay. And Windward, go.
And Windward. So poor Mark, we pulled out the Pinot last month. Unfortunately, it was virused and low yielding, and we also don't have a Pinot program. We're going to leave the vineyard itself fallow for at least this year, and then the concept we're working with right now, because again, we're in the business of growing grapes to make wine, not growing grapes to sell grapes. We'll probably plant in tranches of 4 acres, which feels very, accessible to bring into our program, grow with it. And that'll happen probably over 20 years. Again, for me in particular, and Lopi, which is already a generational brand, this is a generational project. We're going to plant for the future, plant for either our daughters or our nephews, for something that they're going to be able to live on beyond when I step away. But as I think about those tranches, and right now I'm really only working through 4 acres in my mind, is how do we create wines from that? And I think what I'd like to do, at least with the first tranche, is do about 2 acres of whites and 2 acres of reds. And I'm really looking to heat tolerant and drought tolerant varieties. So right now, a lot of influence is coming from the Iberian Peninsula. I'm putting together a tasting next month with sort of the brain trust of winemakers that I like to lean on, and friends and great palates of Portuguese whites, to sort of see what hits and what might be long-term
Anthony,
grapes
time
for
out.
us. Yeah.
Who's included in the brain trust?
It's a pretty big brain trust.
Okay, we'll pass then.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's Rod. Go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
No, Raj, unmute.
Rod, go ahead.
Yeah, I know you
jump
got a
in
question there, but we want to see your face and have you ask the question.
All right. So I guess I had a bunch of questions, but I'll start with my first question. Anthony, like, of all the places that you work with, I mean, apart from Kinero and Royal Nonesuch, I apologize. My wife is playing hide and go seek with her 3-year-old.
I'm jealous.
But like, so of all the places you work with, like, which are wines primarily to spec, kind of what the owner is looking for, versus places where we can kind of see a lot more of you sort of in that blend. Like, and I want to say that at 6 Mile, like, McQueen is mostly you, like, because it's like, I can kind of see that sort of same kind of thing, like, at a bunch of different places. But for the places you work with, what are more sort of like wines to spec versus you're bringing a lot more to the table there?
Great question. So I think the way that I look at this, and we'll exclude Royal Nonesuch and Kinero, because there's only, one personality there. I think it's 60 to 70% site, and we let the site and the varieties drive that. And then it's probably 10% ownership, though I tell them it's bigger. And then, 20 to 30% me and the team, whatever team that is that's working on it. Because again, it's so important. And, the question came up earlier that I punted down the road of the brain trust. The brain trust is people that I have either worked with, worked for, or have worked for me for the most part. And then a handful of people whose palates I think are amazing in wines I look up to. So, I think a lot of that's pretty self-explanatory of who those folks are, but just people that you've been in the trenches with and made mistakes with and had successes with and can be honest with.
And so one quick follow-up, which is kind of the second of the three questions I had. Are there any bucket list kind of owners, vineyards, winemakers, personalities that you still want to work with?
So yes, I want to make Chateau Riise. No, I just want to sit on the wall and watch Chateau Riise farmed and made. No, I would. A couple of things rise really high to my list. I'm so intrigued by the wines of the Rocks District in Walla Walla. I don't know if there's a more powerful terroir anywhere in the world, and you can put your nose in the glass, love it or hate it, of Cabernet, Grenache, Syrah, and know exactly where that wine came from because it is such a unique terroir. So I have a gravitational pull to learn about that AVA and hopefully work there. And I think that's something I'll probably do in the near future. I'm a huge fan of the wines of the Rhone. One of my probably biggest mentors is a gentleman by the name of Michel Gassier, and he and his daughter Isabelle make wine in a really unknown region called Costières de Nîmes, which is just south of Châteauneuf. And everything about what they do is just so in line ethos-wise with what Hillary and I hope to do generationally on our property. So,
Hey, can you spell that for me?
Yeah, Gassier. The wines are really accessible, very affordable, absolutely delicious. They make a fantastic rosé, but look for the Nostre Pais wines. Those are the higher end wines, or the wines from Beck Vineyard, BEC. But he's a master with Grenache, and Isabella's daughter is probably about 10 years younger than me, and she's a master regenerative farmer. But that's somebody I'd like to collaborate with at some point in my career.
The Terry Hogue lot that you bought with Juan, what did you plant there?
So that is Tempranillo, Mourvèdre, Petit Verdot, Syrah, tiny bit of Roussanne for co-fermenting, Grenache, and Graciano.
Nice, very nice. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Sorry. Nancy, we're going to get to your question. Let me get David. You had a question about foil. Go ahead.
Yeah, Anthony, I always wonder, I've seen this with other producers, but what's your thinking behind the no foil approach to bottling?
Yeah, so foils were originally put on wine bottles to keep the rats from eating the corks.
Okay.
And I don't have a rat problem.
Okay.
And a foil costs about 50 cents and has to be imported from Spain. And once you buy your foils, you have to stay with your same bottle, the same bottle shape, bead finish. I love the look of foil. I love the look of wax. It just seems a little wasteful for me. We're actually moving to a lighter bottle this year. Again, just trying to be conscious of what our impact is. And so we're looking to sort of cut the fat out. And there's some traditions I love. We'll stay with cork, though we do use a technical cork now for the Kinero whites. I think natural cork still works for reds where we're laying them down. But, I keep pulling corks on $100 bottles of white Burgundy in their DM. And I'm like, it's such a win. It's guaranteed not corked. The freshness level is guaranteed. You know what you're going to get. And so from a technical standpoint, I think it's really a fun time to be in the wine industry to sort of think through these traditions, some that are worth keeping and some that probably are time to move on from.
I remember Chris Cherry was experimenting with screw caps, and I think that was while you were there, if I'm not mistaken. And and as I recall, he liked the product. He just didn't like how the market perceived it.
Yeah, and I'd say that's still the same. I did the first 2 vintages of Kinero under screw cap because again, I think screw cap, especially for white wines, it's really hard to beat. I mean, they're easy to open while you're driving.
To-go cup.
To-go cup. But no, I haven't seen the market change enough to justify going back, but I spent more time talking about my closure than I did talking about my wine. And I would much rather talk about my wine than my closure.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys can ditch the wax, the foil, the bottle shape, the bottle shape. What's in the bottle, in the label, obviously is a great marketing tool. What's in the bottle is what matters the most.
Yeah, I agree, and I hope the consumer's coming around on the naked neck, because to me it's just waste. But if not, you can send me an email and we'll dip it in wax for you and send it to you.
Okay. Let's see. Nancy Adam.
Yeah.
Actually, Steve wants to ask some questions, so I'll let Steve.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey,
How
Steve.
y'all
Steve.
doing? Hi, I'm Steve. Yeah, I had a bunch of questions, and then he starts talking about Chateauneuf Pop, and I'm going to visit there in June. And but anyway, well, first thing is like if I picked 4 or 5 of my favorite wines and sent them to you, it'd probably cost about $1,000.
That's a lot less than hiring me.
Yeah, this is true. And then I also have gathered from a lot of this discussion, you really got a grip on the terroir in Paso and the different places and the different regions within Paso Robles, and therefore are able to crank out the Syrah, the Tempranillo, and I recommend Malbec as well, in addition to the Syrah and the Tempranillo and everything else. But yeah, you stay with the region you're in, and the fact you got a hot region, and use the terroir to your benefit and the elevation, and off you go. You can get some good stuff out of that. Gosh, the other thing is on the Riise and both your Royal. I'm new to this and very anxious to try these wines, and so we will be in there in late April at Mike's thing, and definitely want to check that out.
Don't get
And,
anxious though. I mean,
Yeah,
it'll happen.
right on. Okay, very good. Appreciate it. And yeah, the fact that you're replicating things that are happening in Chateauneuf-du-Pape or just a little bit south of there, a lot can be had from doing that outside of the more respected wine regions. You get one right next to it, you can get some very good stuff out of that. But to bring that into Paso and the winemaking there, it's just really exciting. So I do appreciate all you're doing, and just want to thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yep.
Each of your projects, tell us the labels that you think are drinking that you are really high on right now. If that's not too.
No, that's great. Okay. So let's start at 6MileBridge. Honestly, I'm really excited about the Limerick coming out of there. That's our Merlot-based blend. I think it's the most approachable. I think Nancy and Steve are drinking the Paladin tonight, which is also approachable, but it's Zin-based, which is not the first grape that I would plant on my property. But I love the Merlot. I love that Merlot's seeing a little bit of comeback. I think it grows exceptionally well on the west side of Paso. It was made for limestone soils. That's what it's grown in on the right bank of Bordeaux.
Yeah.
So that's the wine that I'm really excited about there. I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian here. No necessary reference there to Linné Coloto, but I really love the Riise at Denner. That's the wine that really excites me there. I love making that wine. It's all fermented, predominantly fermented in Foudre. It's really a terroir-driven wine. It's sort of the basis of my ethos of what I want to do at Denner. When I take bottles home, that's what I take home. Let's see. Bessenti, it's all about Syrah. The Bessenti Syrah is so good. If you can get your hands on a couple bottles of the Reserve is aged for 3 years. I think that site is so age-worthy. The first vintage that was made off there was made by John Albin, and it was the 99 Syrah, and it is divine. I think Susie and Ellis probably only have a couple of bottles left, but I've had the opportunity to have it several times over the last decade, and it just blows me away. So that site,
Anthony, can you spell that label?
yeah, it's Bassetti.
Thank you.
We got to get some of that, Jason.
Yeah.
We're Syrah people, so.
Oh yeah, it's cool climate. It's spicy. It's herbaceous, but it's still ripe and textural, and it's super fairly priced. You know, I want to say it's in the $50 range. With Royal Nonesuch Farm, what am I loving? I love our Hokum, which is 100% Grenache, from sandy soils, own rooted, dry farmed, head trained. It's our little, attempt to emulate Riise. With Kinero, it's the Rustler, which is James Berry Vineyard Rousson. There isn't a better farmer in town than Justin Smith, and it shows in that wine. He's a huge influence on me, especially from a farming standpoint, and just an outright fantastic human being. He and Heather and Collins starting to participate in winemaking. Great family. Let's see. Riise. I love the Furman. I think the Furman is really where we get to flex. That's sort of the Reserve. It changes every year, but it's a selection of the most exciting wines that we made in that vintage. It's typically Syrah driven. But that wine it turns me on. It's a little pricey, but I think it still punches at that price point. And what else? The yet to be named label up in Solano County. The reason I'm there is because the owner came to me and said, I want to make the world's greatest white wine. And if he'd said, I want to make Cabernet, I'd have walked away. But that he said white wine, I was all in. So we actually made a Vermentino Peak Pool Chardonnay co-ferment last year that is just fantastic.
Wow.
Did I miss anybody? I hope I didn't miss anybody.
Denner.
I said Riise.
Oh, sorry. That's right. You said it earlier.
But I'll give you for you red wines fans, Dirt Worshiper is so fun to get to work with different sites. And again, Syrah, that's Grenache is probably my first love, but Syrah's my mistress.
Bessenti, which one did you say at Bessenti?
The Syrah.
The Reserve, the 21 Reserve?
Yeah, if you can get the Reserve's really fun.
We're looking at the website right now.
As you should.
Hey guys, I hate to interrupt. Ant, I got to get out of here. I just want to say goodbye before I do this. Mike and Jason, as always, thank you for putting these things together.
Thanks, David, for joining us.
And talk to all you guys later.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
Hey, take care. Anybody else have any questions? Will there be Riise at the event? No. Anthony's going to present Royal Nonesuch Farm.
I'm going to pour Royal Nonesuch at the event. Yep.
And you won't miss any of the other labels.
What's that?
He's pouring Royal Nonesuch, and you won't miss any of the other labels.
Yeah.
Right.
Royal
Right.
Nonesuch is a treat. It's a treat.
Right. Let's see. I don't see where we're in Bordeaux.
Raj
you got a question?
Raj
Who
is
else?
shaking his thing.
Yeah. Question. So Anthony, from the moment you started drinking wine when you were apparently 3, what was your kind of go-to grape varietal, and how has that evolved till today?
Well, Raj, I started drinking wine when I was 15, and it was Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill. from there, my first real aha moment with wine. I was 18 years old. I was on a road trip with my older brother. We were driving from St. Louis, Missouri to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And we were at a restaurant called the Depot in Missoula. And my brother talked the waitress into serving me a glass of 1998 Beaucastel. And I would say from that moment on, my palate has probably not changed that much, because that was the first wine that just took me away from Boone's Farm.
Good reason.
I don't think we got this in the 6 Mile Bridge.
We did. He talked about Beaucastel and the 6 Mile Bridge.
Yeah, right. But where did you grow up? Where were you born and everything?
I was born in St. Louis, Missouri.
Got it. Okay. I think that did come up. Okay.
My younger brother lives in St. Louis.
I feel for him.
He calls it misery.
Yep, for sure. I'm happy to be in Paso. Yeah, especially out on York Mountain.
Who else has any questions? Come on.
Joe.
Okay, Dave Phillips. Go ahead.
Joe, Dave.
And then Joe. You have to unmute.
First to unmute gets asked the question.
or sign language.
There you
type
go.
it in the chat.
Dave. There you go, Dave.
Well, it's okay for me in St. Louis. My dad's from Missouri, and we're great Cardinal fans. I spent the summer of '74.
It's been a rough couple of years for the Redbirds.
Well, I spent the summer of '74 down there painting houses in Clayton and Ladue.
That's funny. I grew up in Clayton. Went to Clayton High School.
Yeah, well, I went there to paint so I could have money so I could watch the Cardinals all summer. But
that's the best thing to do.
So I didn't save enough money, so I ended up going to the Army after that. But it was a good summer. But I tell you, first of all, I'm a big fan of your wines. Always have been. And I say we were able to get the last few times around the 6 Mile Bridge. You got the Denner, and just blown away. I know you know a lot about the Bordeaux area there, and we were in Bordeaux just at I don't think it was a Grand Hotel, whatever, just having a glass of wine, and I had a Grave that was just out of this world. I just couldn't believe it because Grave doesn't get much play anywhere.
No.
Is there anything similar that you would recommend there or in Paso that we're working at? I realize it's gravelly soil. You don't quite have that there, but
yeah. Were you having the red?
Yes.
Okay, because they make white and they make dessert too.
Right.
Grave is predominantly Cabernet, though they're using a little more Merlot these days.
Yeah.
So, honestly, of everything I do, 6 Mile Bridge is probably your best bet. Of those wines, I'd look to the Shannon wine, which is Cabernet with a good proportion of Merlot, Malbec, Cab Franc.
Typical right bank.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, more sort of left bank driven on that one. The Limerick's more right bank.
Okay.
We don't have the gravel soils. So, that's kind of the thing. Stylistically, 6 Miles, I think one of the few Paso cab producers that's really looking to the old world for influence.
Right.
Another producer I would look to that I think is making some excellent balanced and sort of old world style Bordeaux blends is LXV. They're a little more focused on Cabernet Franc, but they're making some fantastic wines. I'm sure there are others I'm leaving out, but that's sort of two I would look to on your next trip up.
Okay, thank you. Like I say, big fans. Really appreciate drinking your wines.
Well, thank you. Also, I'll plug the Denner Gold Digger, which is a Merlot Cab Franc blend.
We've got that.
It's probably more right bank driven than the Grave, but it's a nice sort of yummy early drinking Bordeaux blend.
Thank you.
We're going to be there in March, right, Margaret? We're going to be there in March at the end of March at Denner.
Oh,
awesome! As close as you can get to Bordeaux.
I'll come up and say hey if I'm there.
You're going to Bordeaux next month?
No, it's close as you can get to Bordeaux in California. There you go. Yeah. So, anyways, we're going to be there. What is it called? Gold Digger.
Gold Digger.
Okay.
Yeah, it's named after Ron Denner's second wife.
Right. I got the reference. I'm sorry.
John, I see you there. I went to high school at Clayton High School. That's a St. Louis reference there.
Yeah, I'm an immigrant, but we've been here for 12, now 13 years. We're going on. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah. So you know.
I know enough to be dangerous. I can understand staying in Paso for sure.
Yeah.
So, love your stuff. We've got some friends who we introduced to Paso and some of your wines up in Los Gatos, and Laura's normally on this call, and she said, "Hey, I don't know if you saw, but Anthony's going to be here. You should jump
awesome.
on." So yeah, so I've been lurking, middle of dinner and stuff like that. So really enjoyed your getting the background. I talked to Juan a few years ago, and he's a special person. So that's a great partnership. I'm sure you're going to do great things.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, John.
Yeah, sure thing. Sorry I had to lurk for so long.
It gets in the way of everything.
Yeah, cheers.
What was I going to ask you? I forgot now. What Raj wants to know what you're drinking. You're drinking.
I had an Uncle Nearest from the hotel bar, just to wet my whistle here. It's bourbon.
Bourbon. Yeah, I love bourbon.
Yeah, it's bottled in bond bourbon. You know, cheap, but really well made. And if honestly, I drink a lot of wine. I'm not one of those winemakers that drinks a lot of beer. I do like some hard alcohol. I love a good gin and tonic. I'm a big fan of Monkey 47 for my gin.
What's it called? Monkey 47?
Monkey 47. It's a German gin from the Black Forest. It's fantastic. I love good brown whiskey. When my youngest daughter was born, I poured myself 4 fingers of Macallan 25, which was a bottle that actually Jim Maroney gave me, ironically, because he doesn't drink scotch. But I sat up between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. after everyone was asleep in the house the night my daughter was born, and enjoyed that. Love a good bourbon.
Bottle.
Yeah, it was a great bottle. I have probably 4 fingers left. I'm not going to have another kid, so I'm waiting to see what the next occasion that's worthy of it. So yeah, I'm pretty non-denominational, but other than wine.
So what wines or wineries that you really excite you around town?
So who really I think pushes me a lot, and there's a pretty big group here, but McPrice Myers is someone that I respect a ton, and I think creates just some outstanding wines and really understands the Rhone region and Rhone varieties as best as anyone. Jordan Fiorentini at Epic is my phone a friend. Pete Terone at Booker is high on my list. Molly Lomborg at Alta Colina is a high on my list, phone a friend. I worked for Chris Cherry at Via Creek. I just adore him and his wines. I think they're doing awesome stuff, especially from a farming standpoint. Someone who I think stylistically we couldn't be further apart, but I have an enormous amount of respect for, is Scott Hawley at Torrin. He's someone that I think we approach winemaking in such a different way, but I just love those wines. I think he's making the best white wine in Paso with his Lagom Chardonnay. Technically a not Paso fruit, but a wine that just blows me away every vintage. Who else? I mean, Stefan Aventure, when I took the Denner job at the ripe age of 24, he called me and he said, "I'm going to come taste wines with you and I'll tell you what I think." And I mean, there's nothing more French than that, than coming uninvited to tell me his unsolicited opinion. But I can't tell you how thankful I am for his mentorship and what he's done for us. And we're so happy to be a neighbor of his now at Windward. The list is really so long, but that's a short list of mentors that I really look up to.
It's impressive. And who do you hang around with?
All those folks, but mostly I hang around with a 9-year-old named Ramona and an almost 5-year-old named Loretta and my lovely wife, Hillary. And lovely wife, Hillary is trademarked, by the way, in case anyone was wondering.
Hey, we'll just take a little moment to lighten it up a little bit. I know we're running a little bit over time. We'll do a little this or that. You said go off the rails, so
Great, bring it on.
this is the best I can do. Zombies or vampires?
Oh man, I'll take vampires because you get to live forever.
Good answer. Cooking or being cooked for?
Cooking, always. You get to be
Broken-
the pleasure giver instead of the pleasure receiver.
Broken leg or broken heart?
Oh, broken leg all day long.
No company or bad company?
No company.
Spontaneous or carefully planned out?
Always spontaneous.
Time travel to the past or the future?
I'd rather stay in the present.
Well, that's not on the list of.
That was a no answer.
I know. Very good answer, though. Anybody else have any questions? Let's see what we got on the thread here. Lakers or Warriors?
All right, so this is a tough one because I could really care less. Growing up in St. Louis, I grew up a Bulls fan, but I am pretty much the exact same age as LeBron James, and have followed him throughout his career, and especially in Cleveland and seeing what he's done for that region. And my family's from Ohio originally, so but I'm happy to watch the game.
So I did not know that part, Anthony. What part of Ohio?
So my grandparents were from Troy, Ohio.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they passed. My grandmother passed in 2021, but I still have an aunt in Yellow Springs and one in Springboro.
That's wild. So I grew up in Northeast Ohio. I saw LeBron play at St. V's.
Oh, wow.
Before he, went completely ballistic. And moved to Dayton after doing my MBA.
Oh, wow.
And landed in Troy as our first residence.
That is so funny.
It's like, whoa.
My where did my grandparents live? They lived in this neighborhood that was all named after Robin Hood. They lived in Sherwood Forest.
Yeah.
And every street was named after a Robin Hood character.
Yeah. I remember it. We lived in a little like two condo kind of place. So just and then we moved downtown to a historic district in downtown Dayton. But
it's a beautiful little town.
Yeah, it's pretty decent. And I had a cousin who lived in Yellow Springs for many years. So you're talking my language.
Dave Chappelle, is it?
No, I wish. Yeah, my long lost uncle.
Yeah,
Uncle Dave. Love that guy.
Uncle Dave.
Actually, my kid played soccer against his kid many years ago, and he was coming off the field, and my son swore. He was like 9 years old, and my wife looked at him and said, "This is your fault." Anyway.
It's funny. My aunt Becky was a kindergarten teacher in Yellow Springs, and she taught both Dave as a kindergartner and his son.
Wow, it's crazy, man. Small world.
Small world.
Yeah, I don't know if you were at 6 Mile when we were there. I know your owner, Jim. Yeah, Jim came out and talked to us for quite a while, and you might have been bebopping around, but I can't recall.
Could have been.
Yeah,
I'm usually bebopping around.
Yeah, exactly, man. So, well, you give me more motivation to get back out there sooner than later. So,
come see us.
Yeah, we might. We just learned that we may have an opportunity that wasn't planned at the very end of March. So we'll see.
Awesome. Hopefully we can see you. Come see us at the new winery.
Yeah, we'd love to do that.
Hey, Anthony.
Yep.
You were talking about going to Napa to see winemaking and also the, experience and hospitality that each of the wine tasting things had there. And, normally in Napa, you don't get a lot of great hospitality out of some of these wineries, but the one place that does is the Prager Port Works. If you've ever visited there, I'm friends with Jeff Prager, who is the port maker there. And I sat down one time at a tasting and he just kept bringing out bottles. Oh, you got to try this one. You got to try this. Okay, we're talking 18.5 wine. And I got ripped. And, he's also a big rock and roll fan. And so we're both talking at the concerts we've been to. And it's like you're trying to remember the concert you've been to when you're like drinking 18.5 port wine. And it was just a great rollicking experience.
Yeah.
But that's one of the places I
Always a
would
nice
actually
visit.
recommend visiting if you like port wine is the Prager Port
Yeah,
Works in Napa.
I'll get up there next time I go.
Yeah,
I've not heard of
but
them.
that's a good customer experience. And the rest of them are quite stuffy,
Yeah, I think that's we were very fortunate to be meeting with winemakers and owners at all of those, but just seeing sort of the breadth of styles of wine from a very limited pool of grapes. We'll put it at that.
Yeah. They do make good cab there in Napa, but yeah.
For sure.
Cheers. Any other questions?
Mike, you're not muted, but your audio's not coming through. I see you talking, but we're not getting any audio from you.
Yeah, I was going to say, Shelley McBride wants to know, have you ever tasted in Willamette Valley? What's your favorite?
Oh, Shelley, I have not been to Willamette Valley in forever. Not since I've been of drinking age, I will tell you that. I do love the wines out of there. I've been extremely impressed with the Chardonnays. We continue to get so many recommendations, speaking of hospitality, to go visit Antica Terra, and everyone's just been blown away by the hospitality that they present up there. I've had the wines, absolutely love them. Beaufrere always comes to the list for me. Who else? Adelsheim is always a stunner. What's his name? McDonald, which I love this name, EIEIO. He makes some fantastic wines. Big Table Farm is making some really nice wines. It's somewhere I want to go. Obviously, varietally wise, it's not what we make, but their wine I enjoy and are constantly on our table. And anytime there's an opportunity to go to a tasting of those wines, I'm there.
Thank you. So for everyone, it is pronounced Willamette. And
yes.
How we remember it, you can remember by saying Willamette, damn it. So that's the joke.
Perfect.
Willamette.
Or is it damn it, Willamette?
Yes.
Yeah, damn it, Willamette.
Yes.
Well, I know we're well over time, and Anthony, I appreciate your generosity of time with us tonight and everything that you've shared. And I hope everybody gets to try all the different labels if you haven't. And I highly recommend Royal Nonesuch and Kinero.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, if you guys you're interested, we're actually releasing the Hokum and Spine from 22, which are micro production wines next week. So if you want to get on the list and be able to check out a few of those, go to royalnonesuchfarm.com. If you find yourself in Paso, on our website, you'll be able to see the Visit Us link, which is pretty bare bones at the moment. We'll have hours and whatnot eventually, but right now we're hoping you guys can just be guinea pigs for us as we develop our own hospitality experience.
Right.
Considering all the other wines you're involved in, how much production are you doing out of Royal Nonesuch Farm?
So Royal Nonesuch Farm is just about 1,000 cases. So it's very,
okay.
very, very small.
That's still significant.
We get about 20 tons, 16 to 20 tons a year off the property. And that's the wines.
Kinero, close.
Kinero's about 1,500 cases. So we do a chunk of wholesale there. We make a Grenache Blanc called Alice, which we make about 500 cases of that. And that's, I don't want to say it's widely distributed, but it's throughout California. We have a little Colorado presence. We have some Massachusetts presence, a little bit in Illinois, and then we have a few exporters.
Hey, I got one last question. Is that say fool or tool behind you on the wall in the hotel there?
It says wool.
Wool. Okay. Why?
I have no idea.
Sorry. I keep been looking at it. I'm going like, ooh. Because your head's blocking that one.
Is it
Wool.
Is it Woolworths? Is that like an old sign?
Yeah, it looks like it. Looks like an old Woolworths address. I
Yeah.
only got the wool part.
It's an interesting backdrop behind the headboard. It's a
Little throwback for you, I guess.
Anybody else have any questions? Everybody done?
Thanks, everyone.
Anthony,
Hope-
thank you so
Hopefully we'll
much.
see you in Paso.
Hey, enjoy your event tomorrow. I know you're
I will.
Is Jim going down? Is Jim down there too?
Oh yeah, we're doing a dinner tomorrow night, and then we got a couple tastings at his house on Saturday, and then I'm out of here to make it home for bedtime.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate your attending, and we'll see you next month. Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
Anthony. Really appreciate it. I'll see you in April.
See you guys soon.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye.
See ya.